Noticing was you pulling away from the one thing that you decided that you were going to be, and then you completely pulled away from that is what it felt like. He opens that letter, and it had a disability rating on it. His hands just started shaking, and for those of us that know, it has nothing to do with the money. If you know a veteran like this, it has to do with the validation from the government that we see you.
Well, it looks like we are continuing our podcast and our founder story. So today I have the other co-founder of the Eagle Ops Foundation here with me, Miss Jessica Shepard. And in the last episode, Jessica actually interviewed me, and I got to tell a little bit about my Marine Corps story and how the evolution of starting in the Marine Corps, obviously, and then my transition home into now what we call Eagle Ops and the foundation. And so now we're going to have Jessica tell her story on the same. And so
my side of the story.
That's right.
His, hers, and the truth.
So we kind of get to flip the microphone around, and because Jessica's story is just as much of a reason why we started the foundation, probably more so, I would say. And so we're going to get into it and let you tell your story, Miss Jessica.
Right. Let's do it.
All right, Miss Jessica. So first question for you. When I was transitioning out of the military, what did you notice? What did you notice, I guess, from your perspective in my transition out?
Well, when you were transitioning out of the military, first and foremost, it was your decision to get out of the military, not mine. I want to make that excessively clear. I loved our time in the Marine Corps. I personally love the structure. I love the way that the military takes care of the military families, and I loved the group that we had, the friend group that we had in the military, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I'm a isolating person. So I don't mind being alone. So I enjoyed the time that when you were gone, I got to do some things I wanted to do. And then when you came back, you were there, and it was great, all of that being in there. So when you decided to get out of the Marine Corps, I think that I was fearful at first because I was pregnant at the time, and you getting out was, I think it was scary for me, like what you were going to do next. And you were so sure that you had a job, you had all of this going for you, and everything was going to be fine. And then what I started noticing was you pulling away from the one thing that you decided that you were going to be, you made the decision to get out for, was us. And then you completely pulled away from that is what it felt like for us.
Well, that's the tough one.
Yeah.
What's really funny about that is looking back at the time, and not funny, it is what it is the fact that whenever what we haven't talked about, and I didn't speak about this, is that whenever I made the decision to get out and to come home, it happened to be December, so November, December of 2002.
Yeah.
Well, any and all military know that what happened in 2003.
Yeah.
The first invasion of Iraq.
Yeah.
Right? And our unit was going to be the Spear.
Mm-hmm.
And not that played into a huge factor as far as coming home or getting out, I mean. But it certainly played into my factor on that side of it, of having a family and not knowing my child and not being, around you and being with you for 8 months, 9 months, a year plus, whatever that deployment is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a timing thing. I think, I didn't go into detail about in my story, but something that we definitely that I was addressing and maybe we didn't ever speak about, but it definitely shows your demeanor on how strong the military was, at least in your side of it, that how much you felt comfortable even
Yeah.
with it, and even was okay with sending me away to war with a new
Well,
family on the way.
Yeah. Well, I think that, like I said, I had gotten used to what it was like to, and I think that most military families can probably relate to that. I was saying I'm an isolating person, but I really think that what you're getting at and what's true is that you learn as a military family to take on all the roles that a household needs. And so you get used to that, and it's not that you want your spouse gone, but you're used to how things operate alone because you do it so often. And you also know that you have the base right there. You have contacts, you have all the needs, you've got your medical, you've got all the things, your grocery store, all of that is right there on base. You've got everything support-wise that you need. The military does a great job of that, but so when you decided that you were going to get out, regardless of what was coming as far as the world at the time and the war, I still knew that I would have that support system, I think is what I'm getting at.
So, in thinking about that, as you grew up, now you grew up with a Vietnam veteran as a father.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was transitioning out, did any of that, was there any connection? Like, did you start seeing any connection between like your growing up? I know your dad was obviously out years as far as the Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
He was out whenever they had you. Did you start then kind of seeing connection with military of me being in and us being in and then making that transition? Did you start connecting some dots there between like your childhood and our transition back?
I guess probably not so much then. My dad is a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart, and I would say that, growing up in that environment with a Vietnam veteran, obviously that was my life. I didn't know anything any different. Like that's the only thing I knew. And I had a wonderful childhood. My parents were great, always about family. We kept to ourselves. We did a lot of family things, like just within the core family. And so I would say that more than anything, I have learned more about my dad through my experience of being married to you. It helped me understand him better more than the other way around, I would say.
Now, kind of speaking on that. So when did the idea kind of click that community might be like a missing piece for us? Specifically, like thinking about coming back and then making that transition, I guess.
Well, I mean, we talked about it on your episode, how you came back from the military, and I would say that a huge difference between what I experienced with you and what I now know about my dad is that there's a difference in veterans that feel isolated and veterans that are isolating. And I would say that, your experience in the military, you were tied very tightly to the brotherhood aspect of that. And you missed that incredibly whenever it was gone. And so I would say that's where, like, learning through what you went through, how important it is for veterans to find a community of people that have had those same experiences. And that's on the side of people that isolate and the side of people that are isolating and that feel isolated. It's all the same, because the ones that are isolating, then maybe they don't know that that's what they're experiencing. But for you knew what you were missing. You just couldn't put words to it.
So this kind of leads me into that question, and something that I spoke about, obviously, in that transition, is that now we're kind of fast forwarding into the years of, Eagle Ops kind of being an opportunity there. So we talk about, I've talked about how kind of the early years of Eagle Ops and how we started, but the reality of it is the story really starts with you. And it's not on my cue cards, but it's a question that definitely I'm going to ask, because I want others to know the story of how Eagle Ops truly actually started, and tell us about and what you want to share as far as that day that you made a phone call coming back from your father's.
You might get me in my feels today. So my dad is a Vietnam veteran, and obviously the experiences that Vietnam veterans experience and when they came back from service and what your generation experienced was far different. Thank God we had a community to come back to that was far more receptive. But I would say that if there's anything that I definitely knew growing up, even though my dad didn't do a whole lot of talking about his experience in the military, was that they did not have a good reception coming home. And so the way that they were treated coming back from Vietnam created a barrier, an extra barrier, as if veterans don't have enough barriers when they're coming back from service, but an extra barrier for them getting any services or help that they need, not to mention at the time it wasn't as good as it is now. It's definitely come a long way as far as VA services and things like that since back then. And we've luckily had a lot of great organizations like DAV and those that have paved the way to help make sure that, and it's the Vietnam veterans in those organizations that have paved the way to make sure that the veterans are taken care of like they should be today. But his experience was not good coming home. And so I would say that for him, just not knowing what was available maybe wholeheartedly or how to navigate it, he spent 40 years not getting connected to the services that he deserved. My dad's a very hardworking man, and he just put his head down, came back from the military, had his family, lived his life, did everything, and then never asked for anything, And that's, I would say, probably the MO for most veterans of that era and a lot of veterans today even. But I remember that you and I, once we realized that services were available and what resources were out there, we started questioning, why hasn't my dad done this? Knowing all the things that we knew about him and his service, why wasn't this something that he's done? So kind of started asking the question, and this is probably 2009, 2010, something like that, kind of starting asking the questions. Hey, Dad, have you ever thought about going to the VA? And he'd be like, well, yeah, I think when I retire, I'll go down there to the VA and I'll see about getting me some, see if I can get some health care or something, something like that. And I was like, well, maybe you shouldn't wait. At the time, the process, it's not as many people as struggle with it today. It was far worse at the time. And then I remember going over a few times here and there and would print off the paperwork. And at the time, the stack of papers was, that big. And it would be like, hey, Dad, here's some, VA paperwork. You want to think about filling this out? Yeah, I'll get around to that maybe, when I retire, that kind of thing, And so slowly and surely, he finally, took the steps. I think we finally nudged him enough. Hey, Dad, don't wait. Like this is going to be a bit of a process. Let's don't wait. So we started walking with my dad through that process of getting his VA benefits. And I mean, you're talking about them having to go back to determine where he was at what time, go back to get files and all of these things because he had never done anything. And so I think it was a year, maybe 2 from the time that we filed. Was it that long?
It took him 18 months.
18 months. And so coming back around to what you asked, I was at their house. I just happened to be there that day. I had stopped in for a visit, and my dad goes out to get the mail, and he comes back in, and he's got this letter from the VA, and I can see immediately like his hand starts shaking as he starts to open it. And it's just something that, you and I know from veterans that this process can be so overwhelming. And when you talk about Vietnam veterans and the thought to even have to go into the VA to prove what you've been through after 40 years and hope that somebody believes you,
create some validation.
Yeah. And so he opens that letter, and it had a disability rating on it, and his hands just started shaking, and he hands it to me, and he's like, look at this. And he's like, for those of us that know, it has nothing to do with the money. If you know a veteran like this, it has to do with the validation from the government that we see you, we acknowledge what you went through. And that's what I was seeing all over his face that day. And then he kind of got another look that looked a little bit like maybe he didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
As many veterans as we know that say it, somebody else deserved it more than me. That's the look I was seeing all over his face. And I said, Dad, your buddies would want you to have this. They would want you to, And he just kind of shook his head, and then he told me a story from when he was in Vietnam and he got shot. And it was one of the first times that I had ever heard him tell me anything like that, And I had heard, all my life he had told me stories, they're usually funny or this or that, dark humor, all the veteran stuff, but nothing like that. And I don't know that he's ever told me a story like that again. Not me personally. Like, I've overheard him tell other people stories, but not to me personally. And so I really appreciated that, because I felt like it was like this moment of like, we had worked together and he had gotten this thing that he deserved, and it meant so much, and it was us walking him through that process that allowed that to happen, or helping him walk through that process. And I left their home that night, and I was driving down the old road, going back to our house. And that is the moment that you're talking about that Eagle Ops began, because I stopped the car on the side of the road and I prayed, God, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know what this is, but use me. Use us for whatever this is, so that veterans don't have to experience that ever again. And so then I called you and I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but here's what happened with Dad, and we have to do something. We have to do something. And that was probably 3 years before anything happened at all. We started kind of looking around for what we could get involved in. Do you remember we started looking into other organizations here and there, and we weren't even sure, I don't think.
Yeah, we came back in 14 from running the Marine Corps Marathon, and was all hell bent on we were going to help with Team RWB.
Yeah.
And we were going to step in and help with them.
Yeah, but it was going to be too time consuming.
It was the oddest thing.
We were like, they want us to volunteer twice a month. We don't have time for that.
It's so crazy. I do remember that phone call, and then the follow-on call. So that was somewhere in 14, 15 timeframe. And when we made the decision to open AmeriCom in 16, that's whenever they came back up. In that
I came and sat down in your chair in your office, and I said, if we're going to do this thing, it has to be for more than just this. This has got to be the ship that does the thing that we're actually trying to do.
Yeah, it took us 12 years to get your dad through the VA.
Yeah.
From the time we came back, 12 years.
Yeah.
And obviously, 30 previous to that.
Yeah.
So, and then a year and a half of just getting paperwork through and doing all that. And so that, I remember.
And that process wasn't easy either. I mean, when you talk about veterans that are it's not, hey, I decided to go down to the VA and file for my benefits and then everything was peachy keen. No, it's a process from that point. And so he had gone through a process of, like I said, feeling like you're having to go to the therapist and prove this, or, let me show you this wound where I have shrapnel in my body and prove to you that it actually happened, those kinds of things. So it's a hard process.
So transitioning to the Eagle Ops, especially in the early days, obviously we were outreach on that side of it. What were those early days like kind of for you, and how do you remember those? I mean, it's not like it was yesterday. It's been 10 years.
Yeah. So. Early days of Eagle Ops. I would say that the early days of Eagle Ops was, for us, a lot of family sacrifice, a lot of time away, a lot of I sometimes feeling like what we're doing, what are we doing? I think I felt fake a lot. If I'm going to be honest, like you're saying you're doing something and you're wanting to do something, but you're not sure if you're doing anything at all, if that makes sense. There were times where it's okay, we're setting up this table at this event. Is this really helping anything? Even having some of the first rally points and things, I think I felt like, are we even really, I felt like, here's all these other organizations that are doing these things. They seem like they have real missions, and we're just over here having fun. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, we're setting up a pool party, but in the end, it had far more meaning than what I thought it did at first, I think.
And the evolution of it, for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, like you already kind of led into that, like what were the challenges that you kind of saw as we kind of first started into Eagle Ops as an outreach, and then obviously transitioning into the foundation?
Challenges. I would say learning how to do what we do well, I think has been one of our biggest challenges. Like, we know how to run events, and what we call rally points are events. Like, we know how to do that, but to do that with meaning, making sure that everyone feels seen and sees our heart through that process. I guess I feel like that's still a struggle, like trying to and
What's crazy about that challenge itself is that it's evolved over the last 10 years because of the experiences that we've had. And being able to identify now, us being intentional about things makes all the difference. You know, just creating the event, being intentional about creating an event, oh, that's cool. But being intentional about what happens at those events now, I think it's really been our new focus, like this year specifically, and kind of creating quality events and knowing and understanding that, hey, it's not just about the event itself.
Yeah.
The event being the carrot. Everything that happens there is really the core. And being intentional about the things like you just spoke about is the true kind of our calling on that side and the evolution, I think, for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there was such a need for it, which we didn't realize. A lot of times I'm seeing so much of what happened in, because you don't see it until it's in reverse. You see behind you and you go, okay, that's why that was happening, or that's what that meant. That's what we were being prepared for. But you don't see it at the time. So trying to make sure that, as we grew so quickly, that part of us stayed, because that's natural for us to, create. It's natural for us to create environments for people to be a part of. That was easy for us. But learning how to duplicate that and make sure that our heart stayed in it as it grew so quickly was challenging, I think.
Still is.
It still is, yeah. Because you want to say, okay, well, because some of the first events and things that we had back when you and I were running everything ourselves, like, I'm hugging up veterans left and right. Like, I'm everybody's best friend. I want to make sure that everybody feels seen. And as we grew, I was like, I don't even know who that person is. I need to get over there and, say hi to that person. I don't even know who they are. I don't know anything about their story. Whereas at first it seemed like we had this kind of like core group of people that everybody felt that way. And you want what that was, and you want to take that and duplicate it everywhere. So that, I think, has been a challenge for us.
Yeah, and I think trying to put that in writing and going into the communities and saying, like, it's not about our name, our banner. It's about your community and what you can do in your community. Yeah. It's so much easier for you to do it in your community. You live there, you eat there, you work there. It's just trying to get that intentionality and train them on it. I think that's, obviously it's one of the biggest challenges we still face. So kind of leading, with that is, what has been one of the most powerful moments you witnessed through Eagle Ops?
Well, like you, I love to hear how we've made an impact in a veteran's life. I think at this point, there's so many of those stories, and ones that we've probably still to this day never heard of how we impacted somebody's life. But I'm going to go back to my dad with this one because it's personal to me, because it just kind of brings that full story of resources and how that help can really help somebody and truly save a life. So, again, my dad, Vietnam veteran, and we were able to help him get his VA benefits back when we did. And then the story circled back around to 2019, 2020, when my dad was diagnosed with cancer related to Agent Orange. And you helped save his life by continuing to do what you do for every veteran that you come in contact with, regardless of whether it's my dad or somebody you just met on the street. And you were able to walk him through the process, him and my mom, through the process of getting all the medical stuff taken care of. And just kind of, I mean, when you talk about somebody that's just walking through something like that in general, it's terrifying. You know, you get a diagnosis like that, and let alone being a veteran and having to face that big VA system, you know, and you took that on yourself and you walked him through that process, and he's in remission from his cancer today because we were able to get him the care that he needed that he would have never gotten had he not gotten into the VA system back when we did.
Well, that's another good one.
You didn't know I was going to say that, did you?
No. Another amazing story for sure. And that comes down to the experience on that side of plugging in. I know for me and other veterans, obviously, in the community, I can't take credit for all of this for sure, but knowing who to ask and where to ask and help us guide us through that process, right? So there are some struggles, there are some paperwork things, there are some red tape in essence, because it is a system, it is a process. But knowing and having someone to guide you through it, we have done a very good job of that, you know, and been able to guide through it, and still today, still help through it. So, and I say this all the time, it's not about what you know, it's about the people you know.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we've done. And we strive every day to connect, right? Connect to others that have experiences and have resources and have experience through these things. And you ask enough questions and you start learning, you know, that wisdom kind of comes into play. And I think that's really where I have, like in helping your dad and helping every veteran, any veteran that has those issues that, hey, I've got a question about healthcare, I've got a question about claims, being able to not only guide them through that process, but educate them on a level that they understand. Because anybody can go and fall asleep trying to read the Code of Federal Regulation, you know, the CFR, which dictates everything that the VA is, you know, held to, all the standards and things. But knowing how to read it and understand it is a whole different, you know, ball of wax there. And so having myself and other individuals being resources to be able to explain it in layman's term and going, this is what it means. This is what you need to do, you know.
Yeah.
And that's all I did with your dad, is just kind of guide him through that and you know, get that information to him and say, okay, here's the step-by-step guide. Because once you got that, then you can walk through it as long as you take those steps.
But when you don't know that those, you know, what all that is going to take, it's overwhelming, you know, and you deal with it so much that you don't even see the overwhelming side of it. But most veterans don't even know where to start, you know, and that's the key that you provide that is so helpful, because you are like a light shining in the darkness when they're completely lost on what's, you know, what road to take next. what step to take next. And a lot of them are enough like you that they are like, just show me a step and I'll take it, but I don't even know where to begin. This is overwhelming. So you've truly done an amazing job with that.
I tell veterans all the time on that side of it that I'm the guy that loves denials, you know. And you hear me say this all the time, like, I love denials. Like, bring me a denial, because then I know how high that hurdle that we need to get over. I know what the hurdle is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know how to explain it in layman's terms to be able to say, this is how high we got to jump, right? We found the hurdle. We know exactly what it is. How high do we got to jump, right? I realize that it's been 10 years, 20 years, 15 years. It's irrelevant on that side of it. I don't mean to make it like light of it by any means.
I would think that would be comforting to somebody who's going, I don't know what to do. And you say, oh, well, that's great. Yeah, we can start there. Let's that's helpful for somebody.
That side of it. So added question on that one for Eagle Ops for you is, what do you hope Eagle Ops becomes in the future?
I hope that all that we're doing right now is simply that pebble in the water that creates the wave that just keeps growing. That's what I hope. I hope that the future of Eagle Ops is bigger than anything I could express or imagine right now. I hope that it carries on long after you and I are gone. I hope that it continues to be a beacon of hope for veterans and continues to evolve for what future veterans need, because we know that that's always changing and evolving as generations come and go. I don't want to see it be the organization that was good for a time, but is no longer relevant. I want it to continue to evolve and be whatever veterans need in the future. And I think that that's always going to continue to be relationship and connection. I think that those are two factors that are just missing from the world in general right now. I think that people are seeking that, but veterans specifically have a need for that connection that is exclusive to them, that only veterans understand, because you've walked a walk that the rest of us can't know as civilians. We can understand it from the outside, but we will never fully understand what it means to have been in the places that you guys have been, to fight like you guys have fought, to see what you guys have seen, and then to come home and be told to just go be a civilian again, as if that's just going to disappear from who you are at that point.
Yeah, there's no snapping your fingers on that one, that's for sure. So in regards to Eagle Ops, just so that we have some good info, your position obviously has evolved over the years, and you founded, obviously with me, and been the driving factor and driving force, but what do you do on a regular basis? What do you do during the day for Eagle Ops?
Oh, I'm the certified chaos coordinator. I heard cats. No, I'm the director of marketing for Eagle Ops. And again, that's not a title that I have any sort of formal education in. It was born out of need, and maybe something that I have a gift for, but not something that I'm, ever went to school for or anything like that. It was just a role that I kind of just fell into. I never wanted to be front facing. This is about veterans. It's not about, my personal story. Although it helps shape what we do, it's about what veterans need. And so I never felt comfortable speaking in a fashion for veterans, for doing the Eagle Ops oath and things like that, because it's not personal. It's not a personal experience to me. So I'm perfectly happy staying in the background, doing all things marketing, all things that take creativity on the backside to make things look fun and inviting and get the word out there for veterans to show up. That's what I love doing.
Yeah, what most veterans don't know, and most folks that come to our events don't know, that you're sitting in the back office making, I say it all the time, that I'm the one that gets shit done, but she's the one that makes it pretty. And so all of these logos and all of the cool stuff that we have definitely did not come from my mind. It came from hers. She's definitely the one that's made everything look nice and neat, and keeps us, all of us at this point, organized. Like she said, herding cats, because Lord knows I can squirrel with the best of them.
Yes, you can.
I know that many don't know that, you and I spent 7 solid years before we ever transition whole into the foundation, right? So we started in 2016 as an outreach and donor designated fund for the first 3 years, and then created the foundation in 2019. And when we created the foundation that year, you and I were still working day jobs. Have worked day jobs all the way through 2023, actually. And so us working this, it was always nights and weekends.
It was. Yeah, we spent a lot of time. I always make jokes about our son, Justin, sleeping under an outreach table or crawling under. Like we had so much time that we spent doing this in our spare time. Every bit of spare time it turned into truly a labor of love, though. Like we truly love doing what we've done to build this to where it's at, for sure.
For sure. So kind of closing out the segment on this, what would you say to families of veterans who might be listening?
I would say to families of veterans, your veteran is not broken. Your veteran has changed. His service has changed him or her. Find a way to walk through life with them, through the change with them. They're not always willingly going to open up to you to share, and you may never hear fully what they've been through. And I know a lot of veterans feel like, I did what I did over there so that you don't have to know those things. But I think that if you join them in the walk back home, walk with them and do things like help plug them into Eagle Ops, join them at rally points. Everything that we do includes family members as well. We want the family unit to come and be a part of that. You're the one that has to live with your veteran every day. Like, learn about them that way, and you will probably see a whole different side of them as you walk with them through, joining them through something in an environment where they feel connected to a community that understands them, and you will learn more about them that way. That's what I think.
Well, to wrap up this episode of our podcast, to learn more about Eagle Ops, check out eagleops.org and come meet us at the next rally point.